and let's do something stupid,
That's it for now. More than an hour.
OTB Sports on News Talk.
Sponsored by Betway. Bet the responsible way. 18 plus. Dundee.net.
I'm Richie McCormack. The second half is about to get underway in 4 of this evening's Premier League games. At Old Trafford, a first half brace from Anthony Martial sees Manchester United lead Sheffield United by 2-0. It's scoreless elsewhere, with Wolves at home to Bournemouth, Norwich entertaining Everton, and Newcastle taking on Aston Villa. At 8:15, Liverpool play host to Crystal Palace in a game you can hear live and exclusive on tonight's Off the Ball. The Premier League has launched a reporting system for those in the game who receive online abuse. Players, managers and their family can use the new initiative if they are victims to discrimination. Each case will be reviewed, investigated and will result in legal action if appropriate. Burnley manager Sean Dyche says Jeff Hendrick was advised to turn down a new contract offer. The Republic of Ireland midfielder is leaving Burnley after 4 seasons. Joe Hart and Aaron Lennon have followed him out the Turf Moor exit door, but Phil Bardsley signed a 1-year extension. Meanwhile, Dyche says the club was united in its disgust at the racist banner flown over the Etihad on Monday.
I must make it clear, all of the players and staff felt the same afterwards. I made a decision that Ben Mee should speak on behalf of everyone. The players were all very disappointed, certainly disgruntled in a sense of they felt it was unacceptable. They wanted to have a voice to go, that's not us, that's not part of us.
Sticking with football, and Motherwell manager Stephen Robinson has been given permission to speak with Northern Ireland about the vacant manager's position. The club say they want him to stay but have reluctantly allowed him to open discussions with the IFA. Irish swimmer Robbie Pells accepted a 12-month doping ban. An out-of-competition test in November showed traces of the banned substance clobestol. The 20-year-old says it was an honest mistake and the result of a cream used to treat his eczema. Pells' ban has been backdated to the time of his offence. And finally, it's been reported that there have been multiple positive tests for COVID-19 ahead of this week's Travellers' Championship. Graham McDowell and Brooks Koepka have already withdrawn after their caddies tested positive. Cameron Champ and Nick Watney are also absent this week after positive tests. For these stories and more, download the new OTB Sports app.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. For great value van insurance, go online to the aa.ie.
Dry and humid this evening with sunny spells across much of the country. Temperatures ranging from 18 to 23 degrees, cooler on the Atlantic coast. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Good evening. It is Wednesday's Off the Ball. Nathan with you this evening, and Anfield the venue for tonight's live game here on Off the Ball as Liverpool look to move one step closer to being crowned champions of England. This stadium, well, it has rocked and it has reverberated to the brilliance of Jurgen Klopp's side this season. So it is a strange and somewhat surreal sight to see an empty and silent Kop, particularly with Liverpool so close to finally getting their hands on the prize they have so longed for. That title could well come as soon as tomorrow night if Liverpool beat Crystal Palace here this evening and Manchester City fail to beat Chelsea in a game that we will bring you live tomorrow night on the show. It is an 8:15 kickoff at Anfield this evening. Brian Kerr will be alongside me for live and exclusive commentary. Team news shortly, but Liverpool are expected to be at full strength with Andy Robertson and Mo Salah due to return to the starting lineup. 4 games already underway at 6 o'clock in the Premier League. Second halves just getting underway in all 4 of them, but only goals in one of them, where Manchester United lead Sheffield United 2-0 thanks to a first half brace from Anthony Martial. Scoreless between Newcastle and Aston Villa, and at Carrow Road between Norwich and Everton, while it's also scoreless in the match between Wolves and Bournemouth. Those slow starts to matches continuing. Lots to get through though between now and kick-off at 8:15. We will talk to Liam Toland in a little while on Wednesday Night Rugby. But the big story today is that Tyson Fury has parted ways with Daniel Kinahan as his advisor, and that the negotiations for the heavyweight champion clash with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua will be handled in future by Bob Arum and his top-ranked boxing team. He revealed the story to the Daily Telegraph earlier today. Arum said that this will eliminate a lot of confusion. We've talked with Dan, who Tyson and I both love and admire and respect, and he understands that it's the best the negotiations on Tyson's side be handled this way. Both Tyson and I have each discussed this with Dan, and he's amenable and satisfied and wished us luck. He only wants the best for Tyson Fury. He went on to say that Eddie Hearn has been informed that all future negotiations will take place with Bob Arum and the top-ranked people. To talk about this, I'm joined on the line by the chief sports writer with the Irish Daily Star, Kieran Cunningham. Evening, Kieran.
Evening, Nathan. How are you?
So it's just a couple of weeks since Bob Arum was on News Talk Breakfast saying, when asked about Daniel Kinahan, if anybody asked me, I would say without question that I find him to be an honourable man. He has developed a great deal of trust with my company, myself and our people. What's changed over the last fortnight?
I think what's changed is a story that never really got any legs outside of Ireland has grown legs in the UK and in the US. And it's led to a lot of scrutiny of the way boxing works and of Daniel Kinahan's role at the very highest level of boxing. And a lot of people have been brushing over this for a long time. And now it's being highlighted. There are people uncomfortable with this situation, and they're uncomfortable that their own reputations might be harmed by being associated with Daniel Kinahan. Now, Bob Arum, even in that statement, in that interview with the Daily Telegraph, he talks of his love and respect for Daniel Kinahan. He's made it clear in a number of interviews that he has no issue with Daniel Kinahan. But on this story, it's very, very hard to know what to believe because the story changes all the time. Like MTK Global said a few years ago that they'd sold, Daniel Kinahan had sold the company to them and they had nothing to do with him. And he's threatened legal action to various outlets who indicated that Daniel Kinahan might still have a role. But now Daniel Kinahan is back in as an advisor. They sent out a press release saying that he's an official advisor to MTK. We know that he's been, because it's become public knowledge from the Fury camp and from Eddie Hearn, that he actually played the major role in organising Fury's last few fights. And Fury is an MTK fighter. So we were told in May that by MTK that Daniel Kinahan has nothing to do with MTK. And then a couple of weeks later, it comes out that he's been organising Tyson Fury fights for quite a while. And now he's an official advisor to MTK again. So you take a lot of this stuff with a pinch of salt. What I think the big, one of the big takes to take out of it, Nathan, is Daniel Kinahan clearly, to me, had a plan to get to that, to be maybe the Mr. Big of boxing, because there is going to be a void there pretty soon. And that was behind the release of a bizarre rap video of a YouTube documentary around spreading a conspiracy theory around the Regency Hotel, and about the way I think various relationships like KHK Sports in Bahrain, who now cut their ties with Daniel Kinahan. The relationship with MTK when he's announced as an advisor, Tyson Fury announcing that he was the man who brokered a fight with Anthony Joshua. I think Daniel Kinahan was looking to rehabilitate his reputation within boxing, and that's a big blow for this. But it doesn't mean Daniel Kinahan is gone from boxing, not by a long shot.
That's what I wanted to ask you. This statement today and what's happened over the last couple of weeks and the way it's escalated since Tyson Fury's initial Instagram post where he so publicly thanked Daniel Kinahan, is it damaging to his ambitions within boxing as a whole, or just damaging to his ambitions of being a public figure within boxing? Can he now go back to where he was 3 months ago? And as you mentioned there, he was involved previously with Tyson Fury and negotiations and nobody knew anything about it because it was all behind the scenes. Can he, with everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks, go back to that sort of role?
He can. No, he definitely can. But I think that would be hard for his ego, because I think he has been in the shadows. Like even people within MTK and the Fury camp and Eddie Hearn and so on, Bob Arum have said they've been working with him for a few years. So he has been. It's no secret that Daniel Kinahan's been involved at a high level of professional boxing for a long time, but it was in the shadows. And I think he was very keen to come out of the shadows. I think he wants the kudos that comes with being one of the main guys in boxing, with being the guy who could broker maybe the most lucrative fight of all time. But it's very hard to see how he can do that now when those questions are out there. He can stay in the shadows and keep operating in the shadows, but as a figure that's out in the front, I don't know if he can do it. The question is, does it really matter to the future of sport? Like, to the people who should care about the morals and ethics of sports and the ways professional boxing should be run, does it only matter if Daniel Kinahan is out there in an official capacity? They not bothered if he's there in an advisory capacity and still having a lot of clout? That's a big question for them.
Well, considering how influential it appears he has become, and we've heard so much about that, and you mentioned the links with Bahrain, and there was this summit that was due to take place, that all these different factions around boxing that for years haven't been able to get along, he was able to pull all that together, it seemed. You look at those figures within that are involved with boxing, why would they want to lose that? And would they be willing to accept losing that figure?
Yeah, well, that's one of the major issues with boxing, in that nothing talks louder than money. And decisions ultimately come down to money, and morals and ethics go out the window. And if you look at there are over 200 boxers on the roster of MTK. A lot of them are ex-Olympians, or very talented prospects, or they are world champions or former world champions. And they're looked after really well. Like, that's an important part of the Daniel Kinahan story. The way he set up MTK, when he got involved with it initially back in 2012 and was there till 2017, till the buyout, and now he's back as an advisor. They pay well. They pay better. Boxers, even of a mediocre standard, get paid better than they would elsewhere. They get better facilities. They're better looked after. Some ex-boxers that have fallen on hard time, Daniel Kinahan has reached out to them and looked after them. So because of that, there's a huge amount of goodwill within boxing. There's a huge amount of people within boxing who'll talk him up. And then there's people who are very worried about Daniel Kinahan's involvement in the sport, but there's no merit there. They're actually afraid to speak out. Very, very few people have spoken out about him.
In the last couple of weeks, suddenly with the escalation in media coverage, I think everybody in the UK media is very aware of who Daniel Kinahan is, and beyond as well. And we've seen it go to governmental level. Leo Varadkar spoke in the Dáil that there was contact between the Department of Foreign Affairs and the United Arab Emirates, where the fight may well have taken place. There were letters to Sky and to BT. Has that had an influence? Do you think that the powers that were there that suddenly took an interest in this have influenced that statement today from Bob Arum?
I would think so, yeah. No, because it's coming on the back of the KHK sports thing in Bahrain, of them cutting their ties. So, like, a lot of people within boxing want this fight to go ahead because of the amount of money they're going to make out of it. So there might be a fear there that this could jeopardize a possible Fury-Joshua fight. So I think because of that, that's led to the action. But there's a concern too that, the news cycle, because you work in sport, Nathan, how people move on so quickly. Like, the Premier League has started up again, golf is starting up again. So many sports are starting up again, and that whole, roller coaster or treadmill, it just keeps going. So people that have covered the Daniel Kinahan story, they'll quickly move on to something else. They think, we've done our bit. But Daniel Kinahan is still there in boxing. And boxing's issue, it doesn't have a proper international governing body. It's got an alphabet soup of different governing bodies who operate with a light touch, who don't have the scrutiny, the kind of scrutiny on the individuals involved that you'd want. Like, for one example, Nathan, it's ridiculously easy to become a professional boxing manager. There's actually far more vetting. In terms of, you want to take an under-10 hurling team in Ireland, you have to go through a huge amount of Garda vetting, which is very right and proper because you're working with children. But you can become a professional boxing manager when you would think, you need to be fairly vetted as well because you're operating at a high level. But it's so easy to do. And that's the problem with the sport now, that it's, Jimmy Cannon, the American writer, once called it the red light district of sports. And, it's still operating in those shadows. And Daniel Kinahan's in the shadows. And, that today doesn't change that. Really doesn't.
The Fine Gael TD, Neil Richmond, who's been to the fore over the last couple of weeks from a governmental point of view, he was talking to OTB Sports earlier, and he obviously welcomed the reports that Tyson Fury was cutting his ties with Daniel Kinahan. He said it's an extremely welcome development, but far from the end of this saga. We need to have full clarity that Daniel Kinahan will have no involvement at all in this fight, and that real efforts are being made to exclude him from the world of boxing. That probably touches on the point you made there. You do wonder, those in power, how much they just don't want Daniel Kinahan to be publicly involved in boxing. They don't want him, as you say, with a Joshua Fury fight, standing on the stage at a weigh-in, being front and centre. And will their interest remain if he's involved in that role that we discussed behind the scenes, with that, as you say, passion for boxing that he has and the amount of boxers that he advises? If he is, and maybe he's not, and as you say, maybe his entire career built up to this moment where he was the main man for the biggest fight in the history of boxing. But if he is happy to remain within the sport, but just not in the public way, will the interest levels wane quite quickly as to what his role is?
Media-wise, that would be my concern, because first of all, I'd be quite cynical about the way the sports media has covered this, Nathan, because it's been out there for a long time. Like, there was a ban on the Irish media in 2018 for a year, and it was a very public ban, and I didn't see many journalists questioning it from other jurisdictions, you know, who were going to MTK fights and press conferences and never brought it up, and they didn't know about the ban. So there hasn't been that great willingness to get into this story before Tyson Fury and Bob Arum, in an interview a couple of weeks before that, made it so public that it kind of forced people to look at it. So, you know, where do you go with it now? You do need people to speak out, and you need people to campaign for proper governance in boxing. But the will has to be there. You have Bob Arum, who's one of the most powerful figures in the world of boxing. He's talking about his love and respect for Daniel Kinahan. He's been on News Talk Breakfast, as you said, and he talked about how much time he has for him. Eddie Hearn talked last week about how, you know, Daniel Kinahan's been around a long time. I don't know why people are so surprised by this. You know, is it that big a deal? Frank Warren has made it clear he's no issue with Daniel Kinahan being involved in the sport. So these are the most powerful figures within the sport. Mm. You know, if any move is ever to be made against Daniel Kinahan, or you know, his role within the sport is to be challenged, people have to speak out. And it can't be, no, so much of the running on this has been done by a few crime correspondents in Irish newspapers. They've done most of the running. Virtually everyone else has ignored the story.
You mentioned the actual fight now and what happens, and you could see straight away the reaction on social media a few weeks back when Tyson Fury put up that Instagram post, the excitement that was there among so many people for this fight to happen. Is it now in jeopardy? Is Daniel Kinahan's role that strong in all of this that the fight itself is in jeopardy? And why is he so pivotal to this fight happening?
Well, because he was negotiating on Tyson Fury's part. So there had to be agreement between Tyson Fury's people and Anthony Joshua's people. And, you know, even though no contract has been signed and there's still hurdles to be leapt, they are saying that an agreement is there in principle and it's going to go ahead. So, you know, you can argue that Daniel Kinahan stepping out of the limelight now, it doesn't really matter if the deal is effectively being made. And I think, you know, ultimately, as I say, pro boxing, it comes down to money. There's too much money around this fight. Like, the purses involved alone for the two fighters figures between 100 million each and $500 million each, should be mentioned. Like, it's crazy money. So and that will transfer on to promoters and managers and TV companies. There's a lot of money to be made from it. So because of that, I can't see any willingness within boxing not to go ahead with it.
Mm. I'd imagine he wishes that Tyson Fury maybe wasn't quite so public with his praise.
Possibly, but you know, you don't know, because there was such a concerted effort, or something that was definitely perceived as a concerted effort to rehabilitate his image over the 3 months up to that, with everything that had gone on. So I think he was pretty keen to get his name out there. And maybe he didn't anticipate the backlash, though. All
right. Kieran Cunningham, Chief Sports Writer with the Irish Daily Star. Thanks as always for joining us.
No problem.
All right, if you missed any of that interview with Kieran Cunningham, you can get it on the OTB Sports app. We'll talk to Liam Toland in just a minute on Wednesday Night Rugby, but our main focus tonight on Off the Ball is on the Premier League, and we full live and exclusive commentary of Liverpool against Crystal Palace. It kicks off at 8:15, and the teams are in. Liverpool at full